Testing 1, 2, test.
All right. Great. Thank you very much, everybody. I think we'll commence with the meeting. Do we have any declarations of interest? Seeing as there's none, confirmations of the minutes for November 18th, 2013. Carrie? Great. We have a couple of presentations today. And I'll leave it up to the committee to decide if they want to see them or not. Some of it is a little bit repetitive, but it's good to make sure that it's out there and people know what's happening. At the same time, if you feel we know enough about the topic and you don't need the presentation, please let me know. The first one is the Service Ottawa update. Yeah, and I think the committee members would like to see that one. So if we can get someone to present on that.
Good morning, and thank you this morning for having the opportunity to present kind of our big milestone release that will be coming this year. And with me presenting is Jeff Bumstead, who you know is our Enterprise Program Manager, who's been managing the Service Ottawa program as we move forward. So the purpose of today is to give you an overview of the release approach that we're going to take to release the My Service Ottawa account in 2014. As you know, this 2014 is the last year of the Service Ottawa program, and the My Service Ottawa account is really moving us more into the personalized space of our online presence through ottawa.ca. So at the end of 2014 in November, we presented our list of accomplishments to date, and we also did the 2014 plan in terms of all of the different components that would be released in 2014. The focus really has been on building the tools that will assist residents to move to our online channel, to use the web to do those routine transactions every day, 24/7. And really our major areas of focusing this year is really on how do we move that web experience just from information and transactions to a personalized relationship where we're storing and keeping information and history in one place for residents for their ease of access of those transactions that they do with us on a regular basis. In addition to that, we're going to enhance the services that we provide to businesses by streamlining our permit and our licensing process. We'll expand our mobile devices and our mobile device tools, and we're continuing to reduce that administration, and you'll see some good examples today, that create both streamlined processes for our residents, but are also reducing the administrative process internally for our organization to process transactions. So what is My Service Ottawa account? So the My Service Ottawa, the key components of this is it allows secure access for our residents. It allows them to provide our information for us to keep that securely so that they can use that information more than once as they access city services. It allows one place for them to access multiple city services that they would be transacting in one place, and it allows them to do that using a single email address and a password. Again, this is about improving access, keeping that information secure, and allowing 24/7 transaction capability with the city. And why are we doing this? When we were looking at all of the transactions that people do on the web, we started to look at trends of transactions where people actually have a relationship with us at the city in terms of continual transactions, whether that be initial transactions where they are doing something seasonally, such as a fire permit you'll see today, or where they have to renew a relationship with the city on a regular scheduled basis, and you'll see that around pet licensing and business licensing, or based on an event, a specific event they're having with the city, such as a building permit. And the goal of the Service Ottawa, My Service Ottawa account, is really to make those interactions more efficient. We want to just collect that information from the resident once. We want to reduce mailing, we want to reduce paper processes, and we want to move that to electronic communication with our residents where possible. And we want to improve the accessibility of those services 24/7, being able to pay online, being able to collect that information and transact online, while also always maintaining an efficient in-person channel for those individuals who don't have access to the online service. So how do we plan to do this implementation? Jeff is going to talk in the next slide around some of the complexities of future side of some of the complexities of the implementation. And how we're really planning on doing the implementation is to phase it. So we're going to start with the My Service Ottawa account platform. And that really is all the technical infrastructure that is going to allow us to do that secure access, to collect that information and keep it safe and secure, and to be able to then understand how those components can fit together for the resident. So we're going to put that platform out with the creation of first somebody being able to create a personal profile. And what that means is they would provide their first name, their last name, a phone number, and an email address. That email, that information would be confirmed to that resident, which would create for them a personal account, which allows them, very much like online banking, to go into their login account, enter their information, and be able to see the status of their service request or their transactions in their My account. And we're going to start with 2 transactions, pet registration and open-air fire permits. And these really, for us, are testing the platform and testing residents' ability and usability of going online and trying the My account. And we're really believing that as we put these first 2 out to very targeted populations, that we'll start to learn and understand how the My account has to transition, evolve, and build to be able to add future implementations as we move forward. So this really is our first release that we hope that the public will help us learn about what they want to see as improvements to this implementation as we move forward. So pet registration. So what you'll see in terms of the improvements that have been made are the enhancements that were approved by the Community and Protective Services Committee last week, really looking at how the bylaw will change to simplify access and to streamline process. So how it works today is very much a paper-based process. People have to come into a client service center. They can do it through the Ottawa Humane Society. They can register at the Ottawa Humane Society. And if they register at the Ottawa Humane Society, that's a very paper-based process in terms of how those registrations get to the city. Or they can do it at a veterinary office or a pet retailer. Only existing license holders right now can go online and update their information or cancel a pet registration by either mail or in person as a CSC counter. And only the renewals can be completed online. So it's very limited functionality that we have currently online. Residents must submit proof that they have sterilized their pet or they have microchipped their pet. And renewal notices are sent on mass email distributions once a month out to individuals that require to have their pet renewed. As you can imagine, this is a substantial amount of labor-intensive administrative process, as we have to do mail merges, stuff envelopes, create multiple databases that have to be kept up to date, and there's multiple rework in terms of paper and mail coming back to us in terms of address changes and information. How it will work in the future: residents will be able to go through My Service Ottawa account, create an account, and then be able to apply for a new, renew, or request a replacement and pay for a pet registration. They can also go in and update or cancel a registration, and they can access their license history online. So what that allows us to do is move away from voicemail messages where we get thousands of messages of pet information that is changing that we need to manually update into the account. It allows the resident to do that in the comfort of their home 24/7. In the simplification of the bylaw, proof is no longer required for the sterilization or the microchip. We've moved to terms and conditions where a resident would complete that they accept the terms and conditions of their status of their pet. And we would provide an email notification where the resident is approving that we would contact them via email, and we would send those notices out once a year based on the renewal date of the pet. What's great about the administrative changes in that is right now all renewals are done by April 30th of the year. As you can imagine, in amongst tax due date and multiple other renewal dates, that creates a real challenge in terms of providing easy access and no lineups or service disruptions at our counters. This allows us to spread that renewal notice out throughout the life of the pet over the course of the year. An open-air fire permit. So how does it work today? So residents and businesses must go in person to a client service center or one of the 4 fire stations to obtain a new, renew, or pay for an open-air fire permit. The rural client service centers are open 1 day a week, and one of the 4 rural fire stations, Kinburn, Stittsville, Manotick, and Vars, are available for open-air fire permits. They must provide proof of age, ownership of property, and other documentation. Again, all this documentation that we take must be scanned and kept on file with the record. And renewal notices are mailed out, and they can only obtain or apply for a specific event permit at Centrepoint Drive at the headquarters of the Ottawa Fire Department's administrative building. How will it work in the future? Residents can now go through the My Service Ottawa account or apply at a client service centre. They can apply for a new renew or pay. They can cancel that. They can reprint their receipts and payments, and they can access their permit history in their login account at their pleasure. Proof, again, is no longer required, and renewal notices are emailed when somebody's provided that email address. And residents and businesses will be able to do a special event permit online or in person at the client service centres or at Centrepoint Drive. Again, as you can see, there's significant reduction in the paper and manual processes. So the next release is to the platform. So once we've tried that, we've tested the ability to create a personal profile. We're going to move also to a business profile, and we're going to allow business owners to create a business profile for their particular business. What that does is allow them the same functionality that we've done for individuals for businesses, and allows them to pay, renew, and apply for business licenses online. And they will have that information linked with their Canada Revenue Agency business number. And what that allows us to do with that number is to search a database and make sure that those changes can be made once, and we can receive information and changes from the Canada Revenue Agency as well. And we will then build on that the ability to view and pay water and tax bills, the ability to purchase and print on-street parking permits, and then the ability to change their contract address in the Service Ottawa account and apply that to their, and replicate that and move that to their tax and water bill. As well, we will build on and test a pilot project that allows us to test the ability to change property ownership with a small community of law firms, to test the broader functionality of being able to do that with many more law firms across the city. So My Service Ottawa, we start with what we say are our kind of simplest transactions, but behind those more simple process transactions is a fair degree of complexity. And I'd like to pass it over to Jeff to really talk about what are we building from a technology infrastructure that will allow us to be able to enhance service as we actually move forward on the web.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Mr. Chair. So in addition to the features and capabilities that Donna's just described, there's a significant effort underway as we roll out the first phases to establish the server landscape and the architectural platform for us to go forward with this My Service Ottawa and online service capability. The depth and breadth of the system landscape and the integrations we're implementing is really equal to or ahead of what other municipalities are up to these days. And really this is evidence in a couple of areas. Our conversations with our vendors and suppliers indicate to us that the degree of integration that we're demanding of them as they bring their new systems online with us is beyond what they've experienced in the past. And conversations we've had with other municipalities indicate that, for instance, the Halifax Regional Municipality are kind of holding up Ottawa.ca, and what we're doing is a bit of a benchmark as they strive to move in this direction. So we're certainly pushing the envelope and moving ahead with the degree of integrations that we're building out. So in order to achieve this goal, we really need a very scalable and very sustainable environment to build on. Much like if you envision building a suspension bridge, there's a tremendous amount of effort that happens before you see the first piece of infrastructure peak above the water or lay the first cable. So in addition to all those features and capabilities that we've gone through, we're building out that infrastructure underneath. The diagram to the left of the slide you're looking at gives an indication of some of those capabilities that we're building out. To give a kind of a better understanding of the complexity involved, we've got multiple environments in place, including development environments, test, integration, and production environments. We've got more than 20 server platforms, some of which are physical, some are virtual, some are hosted locally, some are hosted in the cloud. We've got multiple load balancers and backup systems to manage traffic and performance to ensure that we sustain those levels as required. We've got 8 database instances across the various environments. We're building out the integration of 10 independent technology stacks that are involved in providing this system landscape, 5 of which are new to the city, one critical one being the EPAL platform that we've talked about to provide our permits and licensing capabilities. We're building out the integration of proprietary City of Ottawa systems that currently exist and are being built new. We have third-party commercial off-the-shelf applications. We have integration with the provincial systems, the business number hub that Donna mentioned, and we've got custom integration points that are being built out to connect the various systems together. Now, to add to that complexity, we must make sure we adhere to all the legislation and policy that's in place, specifically around information and system security. We have to adhere to accessibility to make sure that everything we build out is truly accessible. We've got privacy legislation such as MFIPA that we must adhere to. The management of official business records as we move services online, we need to make sure that that is all taken into account. The system must be fully bilingual, again, which is another critical area for us. Also, we need to respect the payment card industry data security standards, which I think you're familiar with from previous presentations, as we are accepting online payments through this platform. So it's a high degree of complexity that touches on many, many areas of both technology and process. I haven't even touched on really the business transformation requirements behind this, including training models, support models to ensure that when people do come to the counter or make a phone call related to something that they're doing, we're able to serve them and connect the either phone or counter experience to the online experience they've had. There's to make this happen, really, there's a tremendous amount of collaboration and connectedness amongst the various departments, from SMEs and the business process areas to our partners in information technology and infrastructure, to make sure that the network can sustain what we're doing, security architects and process architects. So there's a large team in place that's extremely committed to building out this platform to make sure that it's solid, secure, and can support what we have planned now, what we've just reviewed with you, and then take us into the future. Thank you.
So just to build on what Jeff said, it's also a significant undertaking from both a people and a business perspective. People, including also our residents, as it will be a new way for residents to do business with the City of Ottawa, and we want to make sure that businesses and individuals who use these services understand the new way of doing business. So there's a fair bit of work in educating and communicating and ensuring that this new way of doing business meets the needs of our residents. And again, as I'm saying, we're using this really as a test ground to be able to build and understand that user experience from our residents' perspective. In addition, there's multiple departments that will have to be trained on new technology that we've never used in the city before, and change management around the multiple different interfaces that those departments have in a process that has changed and will be different in the future, not only in terms of the front-end delivery of that service, but also as we move into the back-end enforcement and management of the service. In addition, our new 311 support model is changing the role of our 311 service providers. As you can imagine, our 311 service has been going through significant change and transition over the last 3 years. And this new support model moves our agents no longer from just an online phone channel, but to an online support to callers who are now being challenged as they begin to have difficulties potentially opening, starting, or changing information through the online service account. And we're really having to train and create the capacity and capability for those front-end agents to be able to answer those and to bring to them new technologies and new procedures and processes that they wouldn't have been involved in before, all the while maintaining the service delivery requirements of the city in terms of access to those services on phone, in person, and online. So really, we're seeing My Service Ottawa as an important foundational service delivery tool for the city. It's building capability that we believe in our long-term future will change the relationship of how we do business for the city. And we will learn a lot about the relationship that our residents want to have with the City of Ottawa, and we're hoping to build that into future releases. So those two kind of major platforms, the My Service Ottawa account will allow us to do those online services. But at the same time, we're continuing to build on the website to provide information in the way our residents want that information. You'll see the launch in the early months of this year, the youth portal, which will now start to look at a different segment. As you're aware, we did older adults, we did immigrants, and now we're building a portal for youth to be able to get information in the way that they want information. And those youth have been actively involved in designing and developing that information as a result of the Youth Summit. The In My Neighborhood that we've been working on will be released in the first half of this year. And again, that will be a bilingual platform allowing us to have information about residents' facilities and programs in their neighborhood. Cleaning the Capital will use the online account in the next release, but that will be an enhanced way for people to register for Clean the Capital. And the Spotlight Calendar, which will be an upgraded tool to be able to see events in the City of Ottawa. So that concludes our presentation today, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you very much, Donna and Jeff. It's very complicated. This is why I never ask what's under the hood of my car that I drive, because there's a lot of complexities there. But I'm very excited about this. I think this is obviously where the world is moving. Even today, we heard that movie phone is hanging it up. They're not going to exist anymore. So this is just evolution. This is where we're moving to. I also see this as a big revenue generator, something we can really maximize on. But also, I see the ability to save money, especially in light of what's happening with the Canada Post restructuring. I think this is where we have to go to be able to make sure that we can keep our spending under control. Again, there's just a couple of quick questions, and I already know the answers. So right now I've heard from people that use e-post for their water bills and all that sort of stuff. Even though we're walking before we run and we're going to do the pets and we're going to do the fire burn permits, do you envision a day when you see all that using one simple login and not having to go back and forth between two?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, in fact, the way that we're building out the platform, both from the My Service Ottawa concept as well as the introducing the various services online, is such that it can be extended and built out so that as we evolve to engage in new services, those can become part of that user profile, if you will, so that over time that profile will evolve with the end goal to being able to manage really all of your interactions with the city through that single account. Now there's work to be done, and there's policies and processes to get to be established for that to happen, but we're building out to allow that capability to.
And that's great news for our residents, making it very simple. The other thing that I've noticed, and with your discussions with MISA and all these other groups, how are we doing compared to other municipalities? Is anybody else doing this right now? Is there a municipality anywhere in Canada that has their own login or anything like that?
Yes, there are other municipalities in Canada with their own login. My Banff is one. There's others around. So there are. Everybody is heading in this similar direction as us. What we're finding is in our conversations, as I alluded to earlier, with our various vendors and with other municipalities, that the breadth of integration and the depth of integration that we're striving for is kind of sets us apart from several of the other municipalities. Several municipalities have a login at the top level, which allows you to interact online, but there's manual processes in the back end. Our approach has been to go from front to back and really automate and transform all of those processes through. So that there's other municipalities doing very similar things to us. We're engaged with them, having conversations with them. We're near leading edge, I would say, in terms of our front to back approach.
Yeah, especially with the size of Ottawa compared to, like, you're right, a small municipality, it's not too difficult. We have much larger systems, different business processes, and we have bilingualism, which is very important. Any questions from the committee members? Councillor Wilkinson.
I noticed in doing it that you're not going to require proof of a number of things anymore. I take it you'll have something where they make an affidavit or something online. But if they find out that they're not saying, if somebody reports things, how are you going to deal with that? Is that going to become a bylaw issue if you find that people are, say, to save money on your dog license, you'll say they're neutered when they haven't been neutered?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that would be through the enforcement component of that particular bylaw. And when bylaw was looking at it, they were saying to date 95% of people that they have right now are abiding and following the bylaw. It's a very small percentage of people, so they're really feeling that the risk would be minimal to the corporation in terms of that particular group, but the bylaw does allow, from the enforcement perspective, to still deal with individuals who have stated that the terms and conditions are such, but are not, when a bylaw officer picks up a particular pet or an animal and they're not microchipped or sterilized or registered.
Okay. The other thing is the timing of this. Some of these things are going to start a bit this year, the launching you're saying here, but the actual one is coming a little bit later on, I take it. How the whole registration process of having your own login with your own email and your own password, etc. When is that going to be starting?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the intent is that we're targeting May to do that, and so we will be lining up the communication with individual pet owners and individuals applying for fire permits. We'll be communicating them into advance around that particular process, so they're aware through our communication through the city.
So when they register in that, when the other things come online later on, they'll already be registered then. So this is, but for registering at the beginning, there's only going to be a few things you can do.
That's right. And some of the intent is to really try it with a small targeted population and learn from that experience before we're going out to kind of broader ones, which would be your water and tax bill later in the year and your parking permit. So we're hoping these ones we really have significant learnings about what we need to improve in that experience before it's a broader audience.
Yeah. Is the parking permits going to be not just the ones downtown, but if you're having a party or something, you can get a temporary permit for people that you pay for? Are they going to have all those kind of permits on, or do you even know? Because those are ones that people don't seem to know much about, and they get tickets when they're having a party. And I said, well, I've been telling them they can do this, but it's not an obvious thing for people.
Yes, the event permits are part of that release.
So any kind of permit would be involved. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cadre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Gray. In terms of we've often been asked about billing from water and taxes where, if they require a secondary bill, there is a cost to that. How will that be rectified through this process? Like, once I register to pay my taxes or pay my water bill, can I go back and ask for a copy of that, or will that copy be available, or will there be a charge for that? How are we going to handle that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, in fact, the functionality that Don mentioned around being able to view and pay your water bill through My Service Ottawa also allows you to print a copy of that bill. So you will be able to view your bill and print a copy of previous bills. Now, we're working with the Finance and Revenue Organization right now to determine how far back that history will go, but definitely from the time that you register going forward, you will be able to go into your account and reprint a bill. And that'll be available online.
Thank you for that. Now, just a question about finance. You mentioned finance department. In terms of those departments that may be affected with shortfall in revenue because these bills no longer, the residents would be paying for, how has that been discussed with those departments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, all of the process improvements and the changes and the reductions that have been taken have been part of the Service Ottawa plan as we've actually moved forward. So they've already been contemplating revenue or efficiencies as a result of these implementations as part of the 4-year plan. So they have been contemplated in those budgets already.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you again for all your hard work on that. We really do appreciate that. So on that presentation, that's received. Next, we have just our status update of the Information Technology Subcommittee, inquiries and motions for the period ending February 10th. Received. And we have a final presentation from our Parks and Recreation and Cultural Department, public Wi-Fi at city facilities. Unless you've lived under a rock, you've probably heard the great news about this. I'm very proud of this, and as a committee, we should be very happy that we're headed in this direction. So on this, did we want a presentation? Yes. Councillor Wilkinson would like one. Thank you. Oh, just one quick second. I'll get you to hit the button. I don't think it went on quite. There we go.
Thanks.
Perfect.
We officially announced the partnership with IceNet Wireless a couple weeks ago, and I think many of the councillors have been aware of the locations that we're putting Wi-Fi in, and we wanted to give a little bit of detail today on that agreement. So I better do this right. So in Parks and Recreation, we have had a number of clients speak to us about the ability and availability of Wi-Fi in our buildings. However, our departmental budgets and corporate budgets don't provide funding for public Wi-Fi. Yet, on the other hand, we have seen a number of private and commercial locations and other municipalities, etc., providing public Wi-Fi. So staff identified and determined that the best approach for this would be to institute a formal procurement process in which we were looking for a qualified partner to provide public Wi-Fi. So our internal stakeholders identified what our minimum requirements were, both mandatory and desired requirements. One of the basic requirements was that we were looking for the provision of public Wi-Fi that would not cost the city or users any money. Another basic requirement was we would not connect to the city's infrastructure. So we were looking for a independent Wi-Fi solution. We identified a number of locations during our preliminary review, identified a number of locations that we had the highest user population attendances, as well as people that were generally gathering in our facilities, whether they were waiting for their children to finish programs or generally coming to our facilities and using the recreation activities and engaging in recreational activities. So we identified about 25 locations. We included our minimum requirements in an expression of interest, and that was in June of 2012. From that, we confirmed that there was significant interest to move ahead in the procurement and initiated a request for proposals in March. We evaluated the responses, and we were quite happy with the response that we got from our ultimate preferred proponent, and awarded a contract at the end of the year, December 2013. These are the 25 locations that we've selected. 22 of them are recreation facilities. We also have City Hall, Ben Franklin, and the Byward Market in these. As you will note, many of these are larger recreation complexes, multiple types of activities, and represent some of our highest attendance facilities in the city. We chose those because we expected that those would be the most desirable locations that a partner would want to provide Wi-Fi for. The company, as I said, that we are engaging with is IceNet Wireless, and IceNet is a division of Eon Inc., and they're located on March Road in Canada North. And the company will be providing all of the equipment, all of the support, the maintenance, the operation for a public Wi-Fi system. The support is both English and French between the hours of 6 o'clock in the morning and 11 at night. The initial deal is for 5 years, 6 months, and there are 2 5-year renewals. The city will only pay for the cost of hydro as part of this agreement. The company pays for everything else, wiring, maintenance, etc. Also, as part of the contract, we left the RFP open to allow for and require from companies that this would be a partnership where the city would not only receive Wi-Fi for its residents at no charge and at no charge to the city, but also we were looking at opportunities to generate revenue for the city. It's always a good thing. As part of the response, IceNet brought forward a proposal to install 75 digital screens in the 25 locations. This does not necessarily mean that every facility will be getting a digital screen. Some of the locations may be receiving 4, 5, 6 digital screens based on the type of facility and the exposure to our clients. On those digital screens, the city receives free advertising time, free time for putting facility messaging, departmental messaging, such as enroll in fall recreation programs or enroll in March camps or summer camps. Or we also may have time for corporate messaging, again, at no cost. Part of the proposal and our minimum requirements was that web filtering would be a mandatory requirement, and the proposal does allow for the filtering of the types of sites that are now filtered on the computers that are located in community centers through the Community Access Program. As part of the deal as well, or as part of the agreement, we will get regular reporting from IceNet on the system availability, the nature of the support calls, and the advertising revenue that the city is expecting. Part of the financial arrangements, excuse me, part of the financial arrangements is that IceNet provides the city with a $15,000 annual exclusivity fee for the public Wi-Fi. Excuse me. In addition, we get a minimum revenue of $48,000 annually. So in total, over the 5-year agreement, 5-year, 6-month agreement, the city will be receiving, in addition, in excess of $315,000. When I say in excess, there is a provision for more revenue to be shared with the city as part of the partnership as advertising revenue increases. The investment that IceNet is providing to this partnership is quite significant. As you can see, the value of the infrastructure, the support, maintenance, etc., and the digital screens is over $1.3 million. Excuse me. We have a planning team now in place that's working with internal stakeholders and the facility staff to identify potential hotspots in each of these 25 locations and the location for the digital screens. We're choosing one facility to completely roll out the Wi-Fi and the digital screen to ensure the system is functioning as required. And that will be our new recreation complex in Richcraft in Canada. In general, we will be rolling out 5 locations a month for Wi-Fi, and in the following month, we will go back and install, or the company will go back and install the digital screens to ensure that we have complete system functionality for the Wi-Fi system. Following the completion of the 25 facilities, we'll engage with the company to do an evaluation, confirm their willingness and interest in expanding the program, and then initiate planning for a phase 2, which with the launch of phase 1, we already have had a number of suggestions for phase 2 locations, as you can imagine. And that's the presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, Richard, Gerald, thank you so much. I know you put a lot of time and effort into this, and I know other parts of, not only through Ontario, but I attended a conference last year in New York, and it was called Digital Cities Conference, and we spoke about Wi-Fi and how it worked in different cities across North America. There's been a lot of failures. This one here is a very different model, one that could be very successful, and I think people are going to watch and see how it works. Councillor Wilkinson was quite giddy as well, because I guess hers is one of the first installations, so I'm sure she'll want to be there when we flick the switch. I think Councillor Taylor was first on the list of questions.
Thank you, Chair. And Richard, congratulations to you and your team on this. It certainly is promising to be a great success, something residents have wanted for some time. I had a question about the usability of it for city staff, city purposes. So my understanding from the report is that, throughout kind of the rolling advertising type of thing, there is an on the screens, there's an opportunity for us to put messaging up there ourselves, but that it's not, the screens themselves are not connected to the city system. So how is it that, if we wanted to get up, whether it's a, Twitter feed of some, city sites or city, Twitter handles, or whether it's, perhaps it's an Amber Alert message, how do we get it up there? I know that the report speaks about city staff will be trained on the appropriate content and things to post, but what's the actual mechanism? Is there a central point where it's pushed out, or does it have to happen at every facility?
Through to the Chair, we are working with IceNet on that. There will be, as I understand it, a separate log-on through the Internet for access to the screens, and it will not be through our city network, as you said. That's a detail that we are working with the company to ensure that our staff know how to do it, and it's something that we're working on right now.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I guess internally then, my advice would be to work as broadly as you can with the different departments in the city to try and figure out then who gets custody and control over what goes up on those screens. Because I'm sure corporate communications is going to say they should own it because it's communications. Parks and Rec will say, well, we should own it because it's in our facilities. So, we'll have to land on something that's, responsible and kind of meaningful for the corporation. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to congratulate you on using a local company for a change. I've had problems. One of the things that they told me a few months ago when I was talking to somebody from EO, it was concerns about how they were going to be doubling their number of employees. I don't know if it's just because of this, but some things I had to deal with it. So I think this type of thing and helping using local companies, which we have a lot of very high-skilled people in technology, as you know, is actually also an employment-generating point. So it's like we get a double whammy for it. We're getting the Wi-Fi for free. We're getting more people with jobs, and they, in turn, are getting a huge demonstration project that they can use to sell this around the world. So I just want to encourage our staff that we've had problems this way in the past. They said we can't just look at local people, but local people are here to maintain and look after things, and it should always give them a higher point count when you're doing evaluation anyway, and too often we've ignored that and had to pay more money because we've ignored it and we've lost the jobs. So I really want to commend you, and it is an excellent company. Well, of course, they have to be good. They have to be able to do what you're doing. Just following up on the business about getting information on the screens, if we're having public meetings and things, for example, I'm having two public meetings in the Richcraft Recreation Complex this week. It would have been nice to be able to have on the screens that these meetings are coming up. Are we going to be able to do that as part of the city's part? Because these are public meetings, they're city public meetings, they're not private meetings. But one of them is about the expansion lands, and people are coming to look at the plans and things. And to be able to have up there the meetings coming and flash on those plans would be enormously helpful to people.
Through to the Chair, yes, that's the purpose of being able to identify and put a facility message on what what is occurring, whether this week, whether today, this week, or coming up.
So you could do it either, city might have one that goes all in every center, and we may have someone going on one or two.
Correct. The message could be very specific to the facility or across the network.
Yeah. And the other question, I know that staff have told me that we're having some discussions about where they're going to put these screens, and because they don't want them to detract from the fact it's a public building, et cetera. Is that causing any problems, or are we getting worked out, or do we have a way of mediating when there's disagreement?
Undoubtedly, that will be a challenge. These are existing facilities. If we were starting from scratch, it would be a different thing, but many of the spaces within our facilities now have previous commitments for the space, but undoubtedly we can work with the facility staff, both the programming leads and the parks, buildings, and ground staff, to identify a suitable location that the company will be happy with and the city will be happy with.
One of the interesting things, I think it's going to also enhance some of our rentals in the buildings. There's one group that told me they've been renting the boardroom in the new rec center, in the new Richcraft Center, but they work on computers with Wi-Fi. And they had one meeting without it, and which they use screens, but it's not the same thing. And they said they were told it was the first one coming. They weren't hoping they'd have it for their March meeting, and then hopefully they will. But I think we will get more rentals, so this is going to have an impact also on the business community use, particularly like Richcraft Recreation Complex is in the same business park as Eon. And the smaller and medium-sized businesses don't all have boardrooms, and this is why we put a boardroom in there. And it's already getting a lot of use, so I think this will actually give us daytime use when businesses might use it and enhance the money that you'll have to do other things for the community. So I think it's a really win-win-win all the way around. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kadri.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Richard, for all your work on this project. But I also want to take a moment to express thank you to the local company IceNet for stepping forward and recognizing the importance of this project, as well as obviously as a business, it's in their interest to make sure that they do participate with somebody like the City of Ottawa. But I do want to thank them for stepping forward as a local company to work with us. Having said that, Richard, just a couple of questions in terms of legalities. I see on page 6 on the report about under legal implications, it says basically there are no legal implications. My concern, Richard, going forward is, as Councillor Taylor was talking about, the fact that in terms of advertising policies, we've already seen a couple of incidents of that come forward in the city. So I just want to make sure that we look at that very, very closely as to what goes up on those screens. And I'm not just talking about improper messaging, but even, let's take this year as an example, being an election year. Could the candidate advertise on those screens in a city facility? Those are the kind of questions I think we should review and we should look at. Any comments?
Yes, through the chair. The advertising restrictions are guided by the council-approved sponsorship and advertising policies. In addition, we also requested the company not to advertise competing uses within our buildings, and obviously there are some companies and programs that we would prefer not to have advertised, and we've identified that to the company as well. In terms of specific councillor election, that's what you're asking about? I'd have to go back through the policy and review it. I'm not exactly sure at this time whether if that's acceptable.
I just wanted you to take a review that, and
we will.
I don't mean to bring it down to that minute an issue, but I'm just saying that there will always be issues as we're facing in other departments from advertising perspective. So I just want to make sure that we cover that, as well as the company agrees to the legislation through the city.
Right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Seeing there's no more questions, thank you again. It really is it's amazing how far we've moved in 3 years across all technology spectrums here at the city, and this is just another feather in the hat of this committee. Thank you very much for that. So on that report received? So we have any notices of motions? Seeing there's none. Inquiries? Other business? And just before adjournment, the March meeting, seeing we don't have a really fulfilled agenda, we're going to cancel a March meeting, if that's okay with this committee, and we'll have a more fulsome agenda for the following month.
Just one comment before we adjourn, Mr. Chair, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for all your work on both of these projects that were presented this morning. And I remember mentioning this to you a couple of years back about having Wi-Fi in the city facilities, and today is a proof that that came to fruition, and I want to thank you for all your work on it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I appreciate that. And on adjournment. Great, Gary. Thank you very much.